So, my name is James. I'm the owner of PaydirtDFS.com, and we're going to be doing a live stream today. It's kind of an impromptu thing. I decided to talk through a little bit of process and model stuff coming off the back of a really nice little 50K hit. For those of you who do not know me, I'm the owner of PaydirtDFS.com, which I will bring up on the screen here in a second. But I am more of a CEO these days than a player. I've played for a long time, but nowadays I don't get to play near as much as I used to. So every once in a while, though, I like to jump back into the streets and be like, do I suck at this now? Because sometimes, you feel like you suck at things, like especially with DFS, you can go on these long downswings and you can have, droughts of having success or not. And, sometimes you just got to jump back in and make sure that you don't suck. And I can confirm, still pretty good at this. Do not suck yet. Maybe one day I will suck at this, but today is not that day. So I'm going to be going over a little bit about the process that I used to win the 50,000 last night. Kind of the process that I have for MME, which for those of you who do know who I am and have followed me for a long time, know that I'm not a big MME guy. I never have been, right? I have always specialized in single entry and 3 max and kind of like the more limited entry stuff and the higher dollar stuff. So for me to be jumping into things like the mini max and jumping into the smaller dollar and large field stuff is a little bit foreign to me. So I've been practicing it for the last couple months using the portfolio manager that I have built over at Paydirt, and I'll show that off a little bit today as well. But it's been interesting, and it's been kind of like a fun little journey. DFS is weird when you MME. Like you never know what you really need until basically the end of the slate when you hope that you have something live. But throughout, most of the day, you're just kind of looking at it and you're like, do I need this? Did that help me? Did that suck? Like, I don't know. It's easy, I guess, when you have, 60% of any given player or a pitcher or something like that, and they get shelled early. But, for somebody like me who usually will stack up on later games anyway, I have no idea what I need in MME until way later on in the day. And last night was kind of similar to that. I did have majority Milwaukee stacks. And I'll bring up actually some screenshots here as well that show kind of like the stuff that I had last night. So let's see. Okay. So I also need to present here. And also, obviously, any questions that you have, like, feel free to ask them, and I'll get to them as soon as I get to little breaks. So these were actually the stacks from last night from the models. I took screenshots so that I could show them here. Had the Athletics as the top overall in A+ runs, and then it was followed by Milwaukee, Minnesota, and the Yankees. Tampa Bay actually was relatively high, 25% or so, but they were also really chalky, right? I had them projected for the most ownership. Kershaw, please don't yell at me. Do I need to let you out? I do need to let him out. All right, hold on. Pause everything. Pause everything. There we go. Okay, we're back. Anyway, Kershaw wanted out of my office. So the Rays were really chalky. They still projected well, right? Like 24% A+ runs. Win percentage was fine. Ownership was just really, really high. So I did not expect to get a lot of them when I was doing my MME runs, and I'll talk about why. But one of the things that I build when I'm doing MME type stuff is I'm building for a lot of edge. I'm not usually building for a lot of chalk anymore. I was for a while building specifically for chalk. I was dedicating around half of my portfolio to chalk, and now I'm not doing that. Now I'm dedicating maybe 20 to 25% of my portfolio to chalk, and I'll show what I mean by that. But here are the scoring percentages. Here were the pitcher projections. So I had Zebby as the best play on the slate, just point blank period. At 7,300, I had him with a median of 18.19. I had Garrett Crochet at 18.07. So clearly I was going to get a lot of Zebby, not because I, saw him as incredible leverage or anything like that, but just from a raw points perspective, he was just way underpriced. Now, early on in the day, Yankees were just knocking bombs off of him, but he still finished with 20 fantasy points, which was terrific. And he ran about as cold as you could have run in terms of home run per fly ball rate stuff. So that outcome was nice. But I did have him above Crochet and Yamamoto. Some people asked me why I had so little Yamamoto, and the reason was mostly just because he's overpriced. It was just way easier to go with two cheap guys, right? It was way easier to go with Zebby and Yu Darvish, or Zebby and Alexander, or even Zebby and Warren, right? Like I still ended up with some Warren. But overall, I was just going to get a lot of Zebby. And you can see from the exposures that I had, and I'll pull up exposures here as well. And I posted this stuff in the Discord last night. I usually post my exposures from the night before. Here, just do this in Discord. So I had 59% Zebby, 58% Junior Caminero. Shout out Junior Caminero. I got to get a card from him. And 57% Chandler Simpson. So I had a lot of Caminero and Simpson. They were kind of like my main anchors. But I also had, Bryce Terang, who crushed. Tyler Alexander, who crushed for his price. Aaron Judge, who sucks. Yu Darvish, who did well. And then, you run into a lot of these guys where, these guys weren't really like the reason why I won, but just having the vast majority of my portfolio. I mean, these top 5 guys just did so well. So I think that was, obviously kind of the start of why things went well. And let's see, let's go back through here. So here were stacks, right? Whereas I had the Rays, I had 18% Rays, 19% I think I ended up with, 13% Milwaukee, 11% Washington, who did not necessarily do well, 9% Athletics. Overall, like Tampa Bay showing up in 18%, I was kind of surprised by, but they still projected well. And overall, like the way that I build out the optimals and the seed frames over at Paydirt, I'm kind of predisposed to getting a lot of chalk anyway. So it doesn't surprise me that there were more Rays marbles in the bag of marbles than other teams. So getting more of them was fine. But I wouldn't have, I wasn't like actively aiming to have Rays stacks. I was much happier with getting Milwaukee stacks, which I ended up with plenty of. So those are kind of stacks and exposures. I wanted to show those really quick just because I think that it's worth showing. And then we can kind of go over into the portfolio manager. So if you have not used the portfolio manager is what I'm building for MME players over at Paydirt. Paydirt has not been a place that has been catering towards MME players near as well as catering towards single entry. So I thought that it was important for me to finally kind of take that step into building something for MME players. And before I talk about that, let's see. Did we miss how Margaret reacted to the win? Oh, she yelled at me. She was like, what the hell, man? I go to sleep and you don't even wake me up after you win 50K? It's like, I wanted you to sleep. I wanted you to get your B rest. It's important. So instead, I sent her the screenshot while she was using the bathroom in the morning, which I thought was funnier. Personally, I thought it was way funnier to do it that way. Strider, let's see. This question, Strider viable over Flaherty, assuming both games play. Man, I literally have not even looked at the models yet. I guess we can go look at the models really quick. And then LFG indeed, my brother. LFG indeed. Let's see, what do we got here? Jesus Christ, Yankees, 46%. All right. Who do they face? Thomas Hatch. Oh, he might suck. Let's see. Strider or Flaherty? No, Strider is a bit below Flaherty. Models really like Flaherty. Up against the White Sox, I think that's fine. The ownership on Strider is intriguing. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to attack the White Sox way before I attack the Mets. I'm going to assume that Peralta probably gets even more ownership than this. Skeen's 11K. Yeah, it makes sense. It's going to be lower. Yeah, I mean, you could play Strider over Flaherty, but I probably am just going to end up with a bunch of Flaherty. Anyway, so Portfolio Manager. What is it? How do you use it? So Portfolio Manager is a management, is an app that I built that has a whole bunch of different algorithms that help you manage your portfolio. So the goal of this is for you to enter the lineups that you want to parse through into this app, I guess over here. And then it has a whole bunch of different stats and proprietary measures that tell you what lineups are good, what the dupe counts are, what lineups are valuable, what lineups are chalky, where the finishing percentiles are expected to be, all that kind of stuff. So this is huge, right? This has been something that has been really well adopted by strong players. I know there are a couple like really strong MME guys that use this over at Paydirt. There are a couple of us as well that are using it in lower dollar stuff, but it's a really powerful tool. And I think it's going to just fucking crush during showdown season for NFL, right? I have been using this considerably more than I've been using the contest sims. I'll just be straightforward with that. I think that this does a really, really good job of getting me an understanding of where the most valuable players are up and down throughout all of the lineups that I upload. So the thing that I do is I will go to Paydirt, right? And I'm just going to take the things that I need from here, right? I'm going to hit this, export RO to Portfolio Manager, and what that'll show is this, right? And this is already ready to go, ready to be loaded in the Portfolio Manager. Then I'll go over to the optimals. I'll go here and I'll say I only want minimum stack 4, and then prepare full data, export filtered, Portfolio Manager names. You can do IDs if you'd like. I prefer to do names. Just going to give you a bunch of lineups. This is 3,600 lineups, right? So then what I do is I come over here and I upload them. So we're going to go MLB. We're going to go just names. And then I obviously have all the stuff from last night, so I'm just going to upload that. I have MLB salaries. I have MLB optimals. And I have MLB projections. So now, very important, just for those of you who have not been using this, if you haven't used it in a while, it's very important to understand that this now forces header names. So you have to enter something that is correct in terms of the sport. But, we can talk about that stuff later. Then what we get is we get to see our portfolio, and we get to see a whole bunch of information about our portfolio too. So it's going to tell you things like the size of the stack, the salary of the total lineup, the median based on the projections that you uploaded, the ownership based on projections, the amount of dupes that it's projected to have. And by the way, Paydirt has the best dupe prediction in the industry. So this beats SaberSim by a mile. Finishing percentiles. So this is projected finishing percentile for the lineup, right? So if the lineup does well, where would we expect the median outcome to be for the lineup? And I'll show you kind of why this matters here in a second, but this is actually a really important column. Win percentage, so how often you would expect a lineup to win a contest based on the contest size entered, the amount of edge that it offers, the weighted ownership, which is my take on kind of like a better version of measuring the amount of ownership in a lineup. So what this does is it tries to say, okay, does this lineup have, it's kind of a measure of relative value. So what it says is, okay, does this lineup have anywhere in it ownership that is low enough to offer relative value to offset the high pieces of ownership? So like if we sort this just by ownership, you can see that at certain points, you're going to see the weighted ownership is going to change just based on, there are guys that are in there that are lower owned or higher owned. Actually, this isn't a great show of this. I wonder why. Okay, so here you go. So here, we can see that it has been mostly linear down to about here. But then you see that this ownership here is 74% and then drops to 65%. But the weighted ownership actually goes up here. That's because there are less sources of relative value in this lineup than there are in this lineup. So you'll be able to see that kind of stuff a lot more in Showdown, not so much in MLB. But this weighted ownership column is what I usually will trim on and the thing that I pay attention to more. Geomean is product ownership of your lineup. Some people like this, some people don't. I was asked to add it, so I did. And then diversity. So diversity score is how much different this specific lineup is than all of the other lineups that you have in your portfolio. And this is also another really important one. So when you think about building out a portfolio that you would like to have a lot of different things that can happen that can do well for you, what you're looking for is to look for lineups that have unique combinations in relation to the other lineups that you are entering. So, for instance, a lower diversity score means that a lineup has a lot of the same guys that the rest of my lineup had, or that the rest of my portfolio has. A higher diversity score means that it has more guys that the rest of my portfolio does not have. So now I think that we have talked about that, I can show off a couple of these things. So if we specifically wanted to look at diversity, so there's a whole bunch of different filters over here, but I just want to show the diversity thing really quick because I think that it's one of the more important things to talk about. In this stratify dropdown, if we can select diversity and say that we want to try to build 100 lineups, and then we'll assign it to the portfolio, and I'll talk about the portfolio or export here in a sec. But if we assign it to portfolio, then what we can see is it gave us 95 lineups. It tried to build 100. It was able to give us 95. And what we'll see over here is the diversity score, right? It's sorted by diversity. So this lineup is the most diverse that I have in my entire portfolio. It is the one that is the least similar to all the other lineups that I have, right? And if you look, just without even reading all of the players that are in all of these lineups, you can see that we have a pretty diverse set of players, lineups, stacks, ownership, all that kind of stuff, right? Now, if I sort this by least diverse, all of a sudden now you see that there's a whole bunch of the same guys that are used. There's a whole bunch of the same stacks that are used. The ownership is relatively similar, right? So this lineup, Alexander, Matthews, Fiducia, Diaz, Terang, Caminero, Witt, Simpson, Pham, Judge. This lineup was the least diverse of my entire portfolio. And I would probably use this one for single entry, right? Because this is the one that represents best the entirety of my portfolio. It's the one that says, hey, here's the guys that are used the most in your entire portfolio. Here's the lineup that contains the most of those guys, right? So any of these lineups in this top range, you know, swapping out Baez for Pham, swapping out Bailey, Fiducia, right? Like any of these lineups with Judge, Simpson, Witt, Caminero, Terang, Diaz, Zebi, Tyler Alexander, right? Like this was kind of the core of the entirety of my portfolio, right? And that's important to know. This would be your single entry lineup. This would be your small field lineup if you were just building straight off the models. So the diversity stuff I think is actually really important if you know how to use it. If you wanted to enter one thing into a GPP, like a large field GPP, this wouldn't be the way that you would do it, right? Like we're not so much worried about diversity for our lineup, for our individual lineup that we enter into a large field GPP, right? Like we don't really care about that. But from a single entry perspective, it is good to know like, hey, this lineup right here represents all of my portfolios in a way that I can actually just take it, throw it into a lineup or throw it into my single entry, be happy. So I think diversity is a really important thing. Now, I have just parsed this down, right? What I can do now is say, all right, well, I've taken a look at this. I just want to restart. So I'm going to go up here and reset the portfolio, and then it will reload back up to your entire portfolio. Now, let's talk about a couple of other things here. We can talk specifically about the way that I have been building out my MME stuff. And just for reference, I have been MMEing. I've been throwing 100 lineups in round 2, 3, and 4 of PGA Showdown, the full week of PGA. Every main slate MLB, except for I think 2 over the last 2 months. I did some WNBA and I fucking hated it, so I stopped doing that. But for the most part, I've been MMEing every single main slate for PGA and for MLB over the last 2 months. And what I've been doing as I've been playing is taking note of kind of how it feels as I'm building. Like, what are the things that I wish that I could do? Like, oh man, I wish that instead of having a stratification on weighted ownership that involves the lineups that have the least ownership, I wish that I could instead just contain the lineups that have the most ownership. So that's what this sample range is, right? If I wanted to say, just for example, if I run this on the portfolio and we see that it gave me 95 lineups. I go over here and I say, all right, so I stratified on weighted ownership. This now gives me the most weighted ownership lineup, as well as the least weighted ownership lineup, right? 16.28. So I was just thinking to myself, okay, well, if I'm stratifying based on weighted ownership, I kind of just want a lot of ownership in those lineups. So I built this sample range, and now what we can do, we'll go ahead and reset this. Instead of having the entire range of weighted ownership column, now we can say, all right, we just want, about 50% of it, right? And now when I run this, it's going to give me 90 lineups this time. But now look, instead I have from 130 down to 51 instead of 16, right? So that was one thing that I just wanted as I was building. And that's kind of been my process as I've been building out this tool, is like, what are things that I want? What are things that I, as a player that knows how to play, what are things that I need? And I've gotten a lot of input as well, right? Like if you are in the Discord, you know that I have this tech questions and suggestions channel, right? And I have been taking suggestions. I've been taking questions. I've been answering things. I've been updating people on all of the different things that I've been doing with this application. I've been talking about upgrades, updates, quality of life things, answering when this kind of stuff happens, right? It's really important to me that I build this tool right so that MME users and also single entry and 3max users can get the most out of it. So this has been a labor of love, and obviously it's nice that it paid me $50,000 to build it. But if you have any questions or concerns or anything like that, you can ask me about this. You can come use it. You can test it. You can let me know how it's going, because as soon as NFL season comes, we're going to start using it to make a lot of money. And that's been my goal for a while. So let's go ahead and reset the portfolio here. So now that I've showed off those things, I'm happy to show off any of these other options. If you guys have questions about them, you can, again, just obviously ask in the chat. But for the most part, I'm just going to focus on what I do when I build out my stuff. So the main thing that I'm looking to do for both baseball and for PGA is I like to think about a portfolio as having different kind of subsections of lineups that are valuable, right? I don't want an entire portfolio of the highest lineup edge lineups, right? And I know that sounds maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but it's not. And I promise that it's not, because when you think about what edge is inherently volatile. Edge is volatility. It is finding edges that you want to exploit, but you should be careful how heavily you push those exploitations, because the time horizon on payouts on all of the different combined edges can equally be very long, right? Like if you have a lineup that is very, very heavy lineup edge, right? Like let's just go ahead and say, let's open this up and look at this edge, right? So this one, right? The time horizon on Tyler Alexander can be very long on paying off. On, CJ Abrams, Christian, like this is a good lineup. It has a lot of edge, but when you're putting together a parlay of all of these players together, it helps to kind of limit the amount of time horizon that it takes to pay things off. That's kind of the difference, I think, between, ROI expectation. Two lineups can have the exact same ROI, but have very different time horizons in how it pays off. So I don't want to just shoot all of the lineup edge into my portfolio. I also want some lineups that are less volatile, that have a lot more ownership, right? Lineups that I expect to finish in different finishing percentiles. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that it's worth talking about. This lineup, the average finish percentile for this one is 0.24%, right? If I go and I look at, we can just sort, well, actually, it's probably best to do this, right? Let's go weighted ownership, and let's just sort this on unweighted ownership again. So if we look at this, like the average finish percentile for this lineup, I think this is the worst lineup that I have in the entire portfolio. Is the average finishing percentile is 6.8%. We want to aim for top 1% finishes most of the time, but having a certain portion of your portfolio that is like, hey, you're going to finish, in the 5th to 10th percentiles, That's totally fine. I actually think there's a lot to be said about having lineups that have slightly worse finishing percentiles so that you can spread out your exposures a little bit. It's kind of the difference between investing in, fucking Bitcoin or whatever and the S&P 500 or like low cost ETFs or stuff like that. I mean, you're not going to get this massive 30, 35, 40% ROI from your ETFs, but you'll get a consistent 5 to 7%, and that can carry you through until the time horizon of Bitcoin can pay off. Think about it the same way with high edge lineups and low edge lineups, right? Using large field preset, does it do it all at once or no? Not for what I like to do. I'm going to show what I do here in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about the difference between high edge, low edge, high ROI, low ROI, and time horizon, stuff like that, because I just like to talk. So I want to talk about that for a second really quick, because the way that I think about a portfolio is having, okay, here is one subset of my lineups that I expect to do this. Here's another subset of lineups that I expect to do this. And here's another subset of lineups that I expect to do another thing. And you can put a lot of these together and you can put them together in different ways. But the way that I like to do it is, first off, I'm usually saying, okay, I want around 60 to 70% of my lineups to be 5-man stacks. So I actually split this into 2 different tiers. I will have one tier where I'm including sizes of 5-man stacks only, and then I'll apply that, and that's going to cut off any 4-man stacks or 3-man stacks, right? And then I will go through the rest of the things that I go through here. And then after I've done that, then I'm going to have another 20 to 30 to 40% of my portfolio that is 4 and 5-man stacks, right? So then I will come in here and I'll do this, right? And I'll get rid of only the 3-man stacks, which for some reason are still making it in there, even though I filtered that out in the optimals. I know that's a bug. I just haven't gotten around to fixing it. Shout out to C Mills, I think, who has brought that up a couple times. So the first part of my portfolio that I usually do is 5-man stacks, and I'll go through and I'll hit the micro filter. Oh, hey, hi, what's up? So
I need help with Zelda.
You need help with Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Daddy's on a live stream right now. Do you want to say hi to the people?
Hi, people.
There's 152 people watching me right now.
What? Let's see.
Yeah, see, look up here, 152 people.
You person see it, there's?
No, I can't see them. They can see us though. Do you want to say hello, people?
Hello, people.
Can you go downstairs until I'm done, and then I'll help you with Zelda?
No,
buddy.
no.
Okay, go. Go.
You just stop me.
Damascus, go downstairs. All right, fine, whatever. I don't care. Anyway, so now that I've filtered this down to 5-man stacks only, then the main thing that I have been doing, so I have built out a whole bunch of different things. I have not been using the presets as much lately. What I've been doing is I've been using stratification. And so what I'll do is I'll say, okay, the first part of my lineups that I want is going to be weighted ownership. And I'm going to dedicate a lower amount of my lineups to weighted ownership. So I'm going to stratify 15 lineups based on weighted ownership in the top 50% of weighted ownership lineups. And I'm going to apply that. And so then I have these lineups, right? I'm going to take a look and I'm going to say, okay, yeah, sure. All right, this one is heavily negative edge, but I don't think that's really that big of a deal because it's really high ownership and I want to lower my volatility, yada, yada, yada. And then I'm just going to add these to my custom export. So I'll just add them all. Then I'll come up here and I'll reset the portfolio and then I'll hit the next part of my 5-man stacks. So I'm going to go back up here, micro filter. I'm going to go to 5-man stacks, portfolio. And then I'm going to say, okay, what's the next thing I want, right? Like, do I want to focus on next lineup edge or finish percentile? Usually I've been doing lineup edge as well, right? So then I'm going to dedicate another subset of my lineups to lineup edge, right? And say like 25% or something like that. And then I'm going to hit that again. I'm going to go in portfolio. And then I'm going to say, okay, look at these. Okay, cool. 5-man stacks, medians look fine. All right, go ahead and just add those to custom export. And I'll just keep doing that, right? And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, all right, reset portfolio. So we're back up to this now. And then I'm going to do it for my 4 and my 5-man stacks. I'll hit this. And that got rid of a couple. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but for a lower portion. So the first one was 15. So this one's going to be 10. Okay. So then I'm just going to hit portfolio, add these to custom export, reset. come back up here, 4 and 5 man stacks, cut down my portfolio, and then do lineup bench again. And again, this time a smaller portion of my portfolio because it has the 4 man stacks in there now, right? And then run this here, add them to custom export. So after I've done that, and after I have kind of built up my initial set of lineups, then what I want to do is I want to go into my exports and I want to say, okay, so what do these look like right now, right? Like, what have I already built in? So I have 63 lineups here. And say that I was building this for a 50 man, right? For 50 lineups, or say that we're building it for 60, right? The next thing that I want to do is I want to come down here. I want to analyze players, and I want to take a look and see, all right, is there anybody that I want to drop? Or is there anybody that I want more of? Because that happens a lot. Maybe I don't want 66% Caminero. Obviously, like, looking back at things, this spread is fine. And when I looked at my spread last night for my players that I had, it was fine. I didn't have to care. But sometimes I do have to care, right? Maybe I think that I have a little bit too much Zebby. Maybe I think I have a little bit too much Junior Caminero, a little bit too much Simpson. So I'll think about that for a second, right? And then I'm going to look at my stacks too. And typically what I'll do with my stacks is I will go to the stacks stats and I'll analyze. And what I want to take a look at, so 28% Tampa Bay, that's a lot of Tampa Bay, especially for last night. That would be basically double the field. But 28% Tampa Bay, 17% Athletics, 15% Milwaukee. What I usually will try to do, and obviously we don't still have the models up, but what I will usually, oh, wait. I took a picture of that. Just kidding. Okay. Oh man, no, but I don't have the top. Okay, just kidding. Can't do that. So what I will usually do is then I'll go over to the scoring percentages and I'll look over here at the top score percentage. So if today, when I run things, I have 25% Yankees exposure, like that's probably fine with me. I have them with a top score on the slate of 20%. Like I think that they're by far the best option on the slate. They have a 20% chance of scoring more runs than anyone else. Whatever. If I have 25% of them in my portfolio manager runs, then that's probably fine. And then I'll look through here and I'll kind of compare and contrast, right? How much Dodgers do I have against what I have in the portfolio manager? How much of the Athletics do I have? If I say that I looked and the Dodgers, I only had like 3% or something of my total portfolio allocation towards them, and the top score percentage over here is 10%. It's like, okay, well, maybe I want some more Dodgers. So what I'll end up doing is saying, okay, well, if I want more Dodgers, and if I think that, I don't have enough of them, like let's take a look at this and say, what was a stack that ended up doing pretty well? I don't know. I guess we could say Yankees, right? So we can go back here, portfolio, and now we have this built up, and I now want to say, all right, include specific stacks. Yes, I want Yankee stacks. And then we'll just go portfolio here, right? So now it's going to parse down to only the Yankee stacks that I have. Get out of here. So now it's parsing down to only the Yankee stacks that I have, right? And then I'm also going to go into the micro filters and I'm going to say, okay, include sizes. I just want 5-man stacks. Hit the portfolio with that. All right, I have 33 of them. So then we're going to say, all right, what kind of lineups do I want here, right? And Hemi, this is kind of where I think the presets and the trimming is important, right? So say that, actually, where's that picture I had? So Yankees projected for okay ownership, not great, but 67%. So let's say in this instance that I just want the lineups that are the highest ownership. Like I don't mind having a lot of ownership on these lineups. Or we could just go with, say, diversity. Give me 15 Yankees lineups or 10 lineups here that are diverse Yankees lineups. And we're going to go for the full sample of diversity, right? The most diverse versus the least diverse. And then we'll just apply that, right? And so now we have 10 Yankees lineups that are diverse that I can go ahead and just say, okay, I'm going to add 5 of these to my custom export, and it'll take the top 5 of those lineups and put them in my custom export. So then I'm going to reset that and go back here and go to my export base. And now I can do the same thing again, right? Like I can say, all right, show me my stacks. What do my stack exposures look like now? Now that I went and added those 5 Yankees lineups. Okay, that's better, right? Like I was at 3%, now I'm at 11%. Happy with that. Over here, let's analyze players. Let's see if there's anybody that I have like way too fucking much of, right? Caminero. I have too much Caminero, right? 6-7% is too much. So then we're going to come over here and we're going to say, all right, so I'm looking at my export base here, right? Let's take down my Caminero export exposure. Instead of 67%, I want 55%. But I don't want to remove him from any of my stacks, so I'm going to maintain the stacks. And the slate has not started yet, so there's no locked teams. I don't have to remove any. So let's just apply that to my export. So we'll do that. And now a recent update is that what this does is it takes your lineups, it replaces that player in those lineups, and then re-adds them into the whole portfolio, and then reruns the whole algorithm, right? There's a lot of reasoning for this in the tech questions and suggestions channel in the Discord. If you want to know why I did this specifically, it's taken me about 2 weeks to come up with the solution, but basically it was important to me to make sure that the lineups that were created after reinserting a player like this, and this is going to take a little bit of time because I maintain stacks and I have 3,000 lineups to look through, right? If I'd have said no on maintain stacks here and I was fine with, reducing exposure just by and large, which is what we'll do for NBA, which is what this is most important for anyway. Like the reason for this is when I was building out lineups and when I was doing these exposure swaps, it was not changing the dupe predictions or the finishing rate predictions or the lineup edge or anything like that, even after introducing new players into those lineups. So like say when this is done rerunning, Junior Caminero, he gets removed from 12% of lineups. Those 12% of lineups that he got removed from would end up having the same edge, geo mean, weighted mean, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's not what we want. We want to see what those new lineups look like. So now that we just did that, we aimed to have him in 55%, and we ended up with him in 54.4%. Perfect. Love that. So after I have done all of this, if I want to just kind of like taper off a little bit more, like say that I needed 75 lineups and I'm at 68. The next thing that I'll end up doing is I'll go back to my portfolio and I'm just going to say, okay, just trim this on weighted ownership. And by the way, if you didn't know this, you can expand this out. I figured this out yesterday, but you can expand it out if you want to see this full word. So if I just need like 10 more lineups, what I'll do is I'll just go over here and I'll just trim the whole thing on weighted ownership. So I'm going to do that on my portfolio. It's going to trim it down to 13 lineups, and I'm just going to add 10 more of those lineups to my portfolio. I don't even know what those lineups are. I don't think I'm worried about it right now. So then we'll go ahead and reset the portfolio again, and we're going to go back to export base. There we go. Okay, we got 78 lineups. Great, cool, grand, awesome. So, I could go back in and I could go back and analyze my stacks one more time and just make sure that they're where I want them. It's not uncommon for me to go through this process 3 or 4 times while I'm building out. Once you get good at going through and stratifying and using the different trimming functions in the exposure management, it takes about 4 minutes to do a full run. For MLB, I'm sure there'll be less for NBA. I can do PGA in like 3 minutes flat because I don't have to worry about team stacks or anything. So now I have 26% athletics. I have 23% Rays. I have 9% Yankees. So this looks fine. Like, remember, I had the athletics as the highest overall upside stack in the models. I had Milwaukee. I had the Yankees. I had Tampa Bay up there. So this is a pretty good spread. Happy with this. We can go back here. We can look at our player stats. We can analyze players. Have a bunch of Chandler, a bunch of Zebby, a bunch of Alexander, Caminero, a bunch of Bryce Terang, Paul DeJong, Shea Langoliers. Like, this is a really strong set of lineups, right? This looks great. So then you can just come here and you can just download your portfolio. And so what I do is say that I only wanted 75, right? Usually when I go through my entire process to build 100 lineups, I'll end up with somewhere between 105 and 110 lineups. So the last thing that I do before I upload is I will do this where I filter. I'm going to filter by most diverse, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to remove the excess lineups. So I know that I need 75 lineups up to 76, and then I will come up here and I'm just going to delete all this stuff. And here's my lineups, right? So then you just go through your normal upload process of downloading the CSV from DraftKings, uploading these lineups into your CSV, and then reloading. It's a really quick process once you have gotten the hang of it, right? Like it's taken me about 2 months now of using it, but I'm really comfortable with it now. I know what I need to do. It's muscle memory to go back and forth through and reset and, make it so that the lineups are being reset and portfolios being reset, going through, hitting micros, stratifying, hitting any presets that I need to hit, right? Doing my exposure management at the end. It takes me 6 minutes to do MLB and somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes to do PGA. PGA is super fucking simple because you don't have to worry about this micro filter set, right? Like I don't have to worry about, I don't want Rory McIlroy stacks, right? Like I only want to include XY stacks. I don't have to worry about that. I can, granted, right? Like if I wanted to say that, okay, let's go back and look at my export base here, right? So let's go ahead and analyze the 2-player combos that I have in here. 33% of my lineups were Chandler Simpson plus Zebby Matthews, right? So there are situations, of course, where if I wanted to add more lineups to this, say that I was aiming for 100 lineups, something that you could do here is you could say, lock Chandler Simpson and remove Zebby Matthews and get yourself some lineups where you have Chandler Simpson but no Zebby, right? And I am going to add in before NFL season something into the micro filtering that says avoid these two players or avoid these players together, right? Like that's a pretty common thing that you see in optimizers. That's going to be like right here, right? It's going to say avoid combos of, and then you can insert the players that you want to insert, right? But that's the kind of stuff that you can do with the micro filters. With the macro filters, right? Like this is going to be really important for Showdown. Max acceptable dupes, right? Like you can set this to 20 and you won't have any lineups that are projected for over 20 dupes, right? And like I said, the dupe prediction here at Paydirt is better than anywhere else in the industry. So this is going to be really valuable for Showdown. Going through and doing the presets, right? Like I like doing small field heavy own if I know that I am on like really, really low owned stacks, right? So remember when I was looking at the Yankees stack stuff, I was totally fine with having heavy ownership on them. If I wanted to, if there was a lineup that had like some ownership of, I don't know, 45% or something, then I'm fine with just doing a small field heavy owned preset and producing as many lineups as I want for that, right? But the things that I'm using the most right now are the macro filter options, the micro filter options, stratification, exposure management, and the trimming options. I'm not using presets as much right now. Presets I think are good, but like I said, still heavily in testing. I have not been using them as much as I thought that I would. I think the stratifying has been doing a better job for me and gives me a little bit more control over the kind of lineups that I'm getting in my portfolio. So that's what we do. And after I do that, I just enter things and I hope that I don't suck. And so far, I have not sucked that bad. My top 1% finishes have been good. I think I'm sitting at like 1.67% or something like that over the last 2 months, which is terrific. Happy to be profitable yet another year for those of you that are haters. But yeah, this tool, get used to using this tool. It's going to be a game changer this NFL season. I'm sure of it. So get used to it. Ask any questions that you have. Come into the tech channel and ask me any questions about that, right? And yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to ask them now. I guess I'll go look at the slate and see what the fuck is happening just for the next couple minutes. But if you have any questions overall for me about Paydirt or anything like that, let me know. Oh, also, really quick. Let's go to subscriptions because it's not smart of me to not do this. NFL pricing is up. right? So all access yearly subscriptions are available for $225 all the way through February 28th. That's right. I'm not going to charge you $300 a month like some fucking grifters that feel the need to overcharge their subscribers. $225 for the entire year, $210 if you only want NFL. Obviously, a much better deal to get full access to the site for $225. If you're a monthly kind of guy, $40 a month for an all-access subscriber, $35 a month for MLB, $35 a month for NFL. There are also daily and weekly options, right? If you just want to try things out for a day, $5 for one day. Not many places offer that option. I think that it's good and, introduces people into things. So let's go take a look at the slate here for a sec, yeah? And Jason and Tribe are also going to be doing a actual slate breakdown here pretty soon, and I will upload the feed a fish from Pablo into the Discord as well. I need to go do that podcast creation, so I'll do that here in a sec. Let's see. Okay, Yankees, massive. Let's see. Skeens is the highest overall projection at 22, then Flaherty, then Peralta. I think that's fine. So you're not really going to be able to afford the Yankees, right? I'm going to guess that we end up getting a lot of Minnesota, whose ownership looks relatively low right now, which is kind of interesting. Probably going to be getting a lot of Texas, like the cheaper guys. I just don't think you're going to be able to get a lot of, Dodgers with Yankees. You might be able to get Dodgers or Yankees, but Leiter is kind of like the only cheap guy that projects actually well. Jacob Lopez is fine. Emmett Sheehan is fine. But overall, there's a lot of price up here, I think. So probably going to be a slate where we have a lot of cheaper stacks. And then we can obviously also go over and look at the optimals. If you haven't used the optimals tab, there's a lot of information below the optimals too, right? So we can see that the player that I get the most of in seed frames is Byron Buxton. So yeah, a lot of Minnesota. I imagine we're going to have a lot of Minnesota stacks. I guess I'm going to open and see Houston, Rays. Oh, not as much Minnesota as I would have thought. Grisham later at 52%. That's interesting. Rice, who's relatively cheap. Flaherty, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to get Yankees with Leiter. We're going to get some Freeland. That's fucking exciting. Oh, this will be a good slate. All right. Well, anyway, they'll have a full breakdown of the slate for you here in about an hour. I'm going to get out of here and go play some video games with my child who needs my help playing Zelda. It sounded like we bought him a new Zelda game today. Anyway, thank you, everyone, for the support. Thank you for all the congratulations. Feels nice to have a hit for the year to remind me that I don't suck and remind everybody else that Paydirt's awesome. If you have any questions, reach out to me in the Discord or reach out to me on Twitter. If you have any questions about the portfolio manager, which you should ask your questions, get used to using it, try to figure out, get the best way to upload things to it, right? Feel free to ask those questions as well. I'm going to get out of here, but love you all. Thank you all. And I will talk to you again in the Discord in about 15 minutes. All right. Peace.